Get out of here, Blue.
Yes, come with me, Your Highness.
And you.
What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Well, it's pretty much what we see in a battle between a superhero and a giant monster. The TV Regent knows that you're a huge fan of both, so today I'm giving you the top 25 times when superheroes fought giant monsters in the movies.
You woke up the baby.
One of the greatest cinematic sins of all time was not allowing Guillermo del Toro to finish his Hellboy trilogy. Sure, the second installment wasn't as good as the first, but that's not enough of a reason to cancel the third and final flick. Anyway, I'm not here to cry about that. I want to talk about epic battles. Now, the fight between Hellboy and the elemental forest god was a visual spectacle, primarily because of the creature design. That forest god looked like something straight out of a children's tale, but sprinkled with an extra dose of adult horror. No, seriously, this is such a good-looking monster that I wouldn't mind running into him. At least I'll get to see a magnificent creature before running for my life. The fight was mostly Hellboy trying to avoid a direct hit while also keeping a baby safe, but that final round of shots felt super badass. It was almost as if bro was saying, okay, you've had your fun, now it's time to die. Even the baby was having a fun time from the looks of it, so it just goes to show that you should start watching these films at an early age.
What have you done to my baby?
Plus, Ron Perlman really knows how to tell a badass character, even though technically speaking, he's supposed to be a monster. The only difference is that he's with the humans. Spider-Man really needs to learn a thing or two about homes. Bro's had 3 movies with that word in the title, but still can't seem to find a resolution. Anyway, the fight here is a 3-way. And no, I don't mean it like that, you sick freak. It's got Spidey, Mysterio, and the fire elemental that's wreaking havoc in the city. Yeah, we all know that this was actually a big sham pulled off by an army of drones, but you can't deny the fact that the fire elemental looks really deadly here. Mysterio was obviously trying to trick Peter Parker into thinking that he's the good guy, but the display he gives us in his next battle is neat too. We get to see him flexing most of his powers, and of course, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man never shies away from a challenge either. They made a good team and had decent coordination even though they'd just met. Personally, I'd love to see a movie where Spider-Man and Mysterio join forces and use their strengths to fight crime.
What I should have done last time.
Unfortunately, bro got gaslit by Jake Gyllenhaal before he even knew it. Maybe Taylor Swift wasn't lying about him in her songs after all. Before we go ahead, I just want to share news with you that I finally launched my course on how to make 5 to 10k a month on YouTube, making movie scene videos just like the TV Regent. Check out the link in my description to gain access. If there's one aquatic creature I find creepy, it's the freaking octopus. Like, why is it even a thing? It's like a squid with big brain energy. Nobody wants to see that, do they? Okay, so I might be acting out on my phobia right now, but let me tell you something. Watching Doctor Strange fighting that Gargantos was a nightmare come true. The creature design was as scary as it could get, and the weird way that monster was able to shift its eye from time to time gave me the heebie-jeebies. Also, why are these monsters always angry? What did these humans ever do to you, bro? Just go for a walk or... Maybe in this case, a swim? Doctor Strange should have just used his best moves to finish it off as soon as possible, but I guess he also had to keep the civilians in mind. Plus, there was America Chavez as well, who was basically the prime target. The battle's filled with twists and turns, but eventually, it's Strange who comes out on top with a rather savage technique. Watching him poke the eye of this giant octopus kind of reminded me of the way George won against Lizzie in Rampage. Oh yeah, and who doesn't love a small cameo from Wong to add some more energy into the battle? It's kind of weird that we got to see the most savage Superman in 2023's The Flash, but hey, if it means we see Nicolas Cage playing the role he was always meant to play, then I'll take it. Yes, now I know this is a CGI Nick Cage, but I'm still counting it because I have no idea if we'll ever get to see him don the suit again. The fight here is brief, as we see one of the Superman variants facing off against a giant spider, which also happens to be one of my worst fears. Luckily, all it takes is a typical Nick Cage scream followed by a brutal blast of laser eyes, and we get a KO in all of 10 business seconds. It's a pretty dark scene with this version of Superman being a dark one. It's only fitting for Hollywood's angriest men to be given such a title. And yeah, let's be honest here, that spider was more of a victim than a culprit if it had to meet its end in such a way. Just look at how he finishes off this beast with no remorse at all. It's almost as savage as Kendrick's diss towards Drake, but yeah, knowing Nick Cage, he can probably do all of this in real life as well. If you're the god of thunder, then fire dragons shouldn't really be a bother for you, should they? And that's exactly what we see in the opening of Thor Ragnarok. Sure, the main battle is with Surtur, but Thor wins that round, and I don't really want to cover that scene in detail, so I guess it's a good thing that the writers wanted him to put in a little bit of extra work. The fire dragon from Muspelheim had a crazy creature design, and I would have loved to see more of him, but I guess a chase scene was as good as it could get for us. Yes, there is a moment where the dragon literally tries to eat Thor, but Bro's strong enough to fight against his appetite. It was a funny little addition to have the dragon struggle with Mjolnir placed inside its mouth.
I'm down. Running short on options.
But the highlight for me will be the final chase scene right before Thor gets teleported back to Asgard. Putting fire jet engines on that dragon was the coolest upgrade any beast could have asked for.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Also, huge shout out to Billy Butcher for lending his hand here to help the God of Thunder. I guess he traveled all the way to the MCU for some tips on how to beat Homelander.
Stay.
Hey, we've got 2 consecutive entries from the same film. How about that, hey? Technically speaking, the Hulk should also classify as a giant monster, because there's no way on earth that I'm considering him to be an average superhero. However, he does put up a brilliant fight against Fenris over here, so he gets his due credit. The key moment is obviously when Bruce Banner tries to land a heroic leap but ends up violating himself, not just in front of Valkyrie or the Giant Wolf, but the survivors of Asgard as well. Now, and ain't a good look for you, but he redeemed himself almost instantly when he turned into the angry green giant and literally swung Fenris away as if he was just a little puppy. The fight between them may not have been shown in detail, but we did get some important details such as Hulk bleeding. It had never been seen before, so it gave us a good idea on how strong the Giant Wolf really was. Of course,
Big monster.
it's the Hulk who ends up as the victor with a brutal finisher punch to end the battle. However, I feel Bro would have had a better chance if he just gave that massive doggo a nice little belly rub. See, now that would have been comedic gold. Taika Waititi, hope you're taking notes. Just because there are giant monsters involved doesn't mean we can't have a kids film on this list. The Incredibles was a pop culture phenomenon that gripped kids all over the world. One of the many reasons to love this film is the main hero himself, Bob Parr, aka Mr. Incredible. The battle between him and the Omnidroid was a great sight because it gave us all a rather serious tone for the most part. The fight was more like a game of cat and mouse, but in this case, Mr. Incredible is Jerry and the Omnidroid is Tom. Our hero does well to counter his opponent's strength and then plunge him into a pit of lava, but when that fails, all that's left is to sabotage the enemy from within. No, look, I don't mean calling it names to break down its morale. Mr. Incredible literally enters the monster and messes up all its insides in a matter of 10 business seconds. Also, I don't know why the dad bod was being extra focused in this scene, but it did add a humorous touch to the whole scene. Who knows, maybe Fat Thor took inspiration from it. I know this version of Hellboy really sucked, so it's a bit of a surprise to see it above the OG version of the character. But I've got to give credit to him for taking down those giants without much damage. Okay, he does take a bit of damage and literally passes out by the end of it, but that's only because he had to take on multiple monsters at the same time. Just going by the size comparison alone would have put him at a disadvantage, but bro wasn't having any of it and made sure to take down those beasts with all his strength. I particularly like the way he dealt with the final giant because he used its own weapon against it. Of course, Hellboy is strong by himself, which is why we can't see him lifting trees and firing them into his enemies. As if he's launching missiles without any launch codes. But yeah, overall, this was a neatly directed scene and the CGI wasn't bad either. The rest of the movie, though, was a huge disappointment. I guess David Harbour should just stick to fighting Demogorgons from the upside down for now.
What is he doing?
This is one of the best opening sequences of all time in comic book films, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that James Gunn made a monster as terrifying as the Obelisk a part of a hilarious scene.
I must cut through it from the inside.
The Guardians of the Galaxy are doing their very best to defeat this monster. But what they largely ignore is the fact that Baby Groot is just chilling and dancing on the sidelines while the opening credits play out.
Get it to look up!
The fight was clearly a lengthy one as it only ended when the credits did, so that goes to show how deadly of a monster the Obelisk really is. There were so many cool shots from this sequence, such as the part where Drax willingly jumps into the monster's mouth. He eventually makes his way out, but only after the beast gets defeated on the outside, so yeah, that was a funny little addition as well. Bro really thought he could cut the beast from inside. The look on everyone else's face after he came out of the dead body was priceless. Anyway, it was a great intro to the Guardians sequel, and I watched through the entire scene, even though this weirdo of a monster also strongly resembles a giant octopus. Starro the Conqueror may not look like a deadly monster, but he's as creepy as they come, especially with the whole hive mind mentality. Luckily, the Suicide Squad was there to take care of him, although they did need some backup in the form of a giant rat army. The build-up to Starro's eventual demise was intense, especially the way Polka Dot Man had to be sacrificed for the sake of a Yo Mama joke. Gotta give it to Bloodsport though, he knew exactly what he had to say to get a reaction out of that guy. There were also neat little moments like Bloodsport using up the weapons on his suit to take down the humans that were being controlled by Starro. Of course, there's also the bit with King Shark which turned the fight into a monster showdown, but even he could only do so much until Red Catcher 2 gave Starro a pretty deadly end. Like, imagine being eaten from the inside by a bunch of nasty rats. Just thinking about it makes me want to barf. One thing's for sure though, James Gunn has got a pretty sick and twisted sense of humor.
You okay? Yeah, go!
Yep, this one beats the fight against the Fire Elemental, and it's not because I wanted to follow the logic of water types beating fire types in the Pokemon world. It's the first battle we see against the Elementals, and the water monster was a pretty tough opponent now that you think about it. Spider-Man was clearly having trouble trying to keep the building safe while also fighting the beast, so he did need backup. Once again, it's Mysterio who comes in to save the day, just like he'd planned all along. But I also found it really entertaining because of some of Spidey's decisions here. Bro was trying to shoot webs at a water monster. Like, where are those webs gonna stick, Peter? Aren't you supposed to be a science major? Also, what's up with that mask? Did you really think no one was gonna recognize those clothes or that school bag? Maybe that mask had the same powers as Clark Kent's glasses. I don't even know why they made him so goofy here. Even the way he hits the bell twice made me laugh my guts out. But yeah, even though the water elemental was a deception, he still looked cool as a threat. Yep, this one's back in the good old days when they used to show Thor at his true power level.
Next.
The fight against the Frost Giants and the Frost Beast was easily the highlight of the first Thor movie because we got to see the God of Thunder in full flow. I didn't really understand how powerful he was until I saw him casually taking down giant monsters as if they were just little insects.
That's more like it.
I also like the way he uses Mjolnir so casually, as if it was just a toy. The Frost Beast was also a pretty cool monster, even though I would have preferred if they upped the brightness a little bit so we could see that beast clearly. Even so, the whole chase sequence building up to the final strike landed by Thor was epic. Like, he never looked in any kind of trouble. And guess what? This was back when Thor would aim for the head. Okay, he went for the throat here, but you know what I mean, don't you? I guess that Frost Beast must have had a Thor throat after that encounter, right? I've got to say, that really was an S-tier dad joke, if I may say so myself.
Get out of here, Blue.
Yes, come with me, Your Highness.
You.
We're normally used to seeing Hellboy taking on monsters that are way bigger than him, but in this case, I'd say the sizes were closely matched. Yes, the cave troll was still much bigger, but at least he didn't tower over our hero. Also, this monster was strong if you compare it to the beasts Hellboy normally finds himself up against. Those punches were super strong, and to see Hellboy struggling, even if it was just for a few moments, was a pretty deadly indication of the cave troll's strength. He did mess up in one key area though, and that was ruining our hero's favorite Cuban cigar. That's as good as blasphemy, which is why we saw such a badass fight right after Bro got pissed. This fight was also a good read into how strong Hellboy's arm is, and no, it's not because of the weirdos might be thinking right now. The real takeaway was that final little chat they had with each other wherein Hellboy warned the troll not to try anything funny. Bro didn't listen and got sucked into a pretty brutal death. I guess you could say he died by his own hand. Get it?
Let me put this to you as delicately as I can.
The Battle of Vanaheim was the perfect way to introduce Thor to his own sequel. Not only was it an intense battle, it also gave us one of the most anticlimactic battles in the MCU. Imagine being hyped up to the point where you're made to look even tougher than Thanos, only for the God of Thunder to annihilate you with a brutal smash. It literally takes one swing for Thor to end this match, and it's the dominance that stands out to me. Look, I'm sure that the Stone Giant isn't some pushover,
I accept your surrender.
but if you're going to roar and look Thor in the face with so much confidence, the least you can do is avoid getting destroyed the second after the God of Thunder decides to strike you. This kind of felt like when you've completed the game and then you go back to the first boss at max power. Also, I want to say that the writers really missed a trick in Thor Ragnarok when it came to having some kind of callback between the Stone Giant and Korg. Imagine if this dude was his dad or something. That would have been an amazing addition, and I don't care how dark of a joke it would have been.
Anyone else?
Babylon has a thing for epic fights, doesn't it? In this case, we get to see one of the earliest battles in history, and it involved the Eternals against the Deviants. The movie may not have done much in terms of commercial or critical success, but it did land some nice fight scenes, and personally speaking, I support anything that involves the destruction of these deviants. Their character designs are so creepy and unsettling that they almost make you feel uncomfortable just by looking at them. Luckily, the Eternals come to the rescue here and give them a thrashing that they most definitely deserve. The overall direction of the scene was pretty solid, and the visuals didn't disappoint at all. That massive deviant probably got the worst of it because of all of the hits he had to take. No, seriously, everyone had at him, right from Icarus to Gilgamesh. That final slap to defeat the beast felt more like a personal violation because bro was trying to get up from a fatality attack only to be smacked down for good. See, Gilgamesh knows how to double tap the enemy. It's time for my top 10, so I decided to include a scene that I haven't really shouted out as much as I should have. The opening battle between Thor and Surtur is something that I teased in my earlier entry on the Fire Dragon, and now you know why I didn't want to cover it in detail back then.
Because that's what heroes do.
The fight could be considered as a one-sided affair.
You have made a grave mistake, Odin's son.
But we do get to see Thor dishing out some impressive battle moves. If we got this version of the God of Thunder in Endgame, then Tony Stark would probably still be alive. Also, if you think about it, Surtur is the kind of villain that would require the Avengers to come together, but Thor managed to sort it all out on his own. Like, this scene alone was miles better than Love and Thunder. I don't know what plans the MCU may have for Chris Hemsworth now, but if you do want to use Thor again, then please bring back the badass version of the character.
Everybody down!
You know, I like to make fun of Vin Diesel every now and then, but I've got to admit, nothing beats the power of family. Just look at The Incredibles. They're the prime example of this concept. The fight against that massive robot was a thrilling sequence of events because it really looked for the longest time that things weren't going to work out for our heroes.
Bob!
I mean, even Frozone came to the scene, and he only just about added a small advantage to Mr. Incredible and co. I think what works best for this scene is that there are so many people working together, not just to keep the public safe, but also to find a way to defeat their opponent. The eventual finisher was applied with a lot of suspense, but hey, I'm not going to argue with Elastigirl if she tells me to wait, if you know what I mean. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that none of this would have been possible had the whole fam not come together to beat the enemy.
But we need to let him finish the job, otherwise... No. Don't stop, you moron!
Okay, so I know this fight is a bit ridiculous when you look at it from the surface, but this was a super hype scene for everyone who'd seen the trailer to Thor Ragnarok. Come to think of it, Thor's been in a lot of entries today, but this time it's the angry green giant who steals the limelight. Now, we all know what Hulk is capable of in terms of power. After all, he did just beat an overpowered wolf not too long ago.
Big monster!
This time, though, he's up against Surtur in his true form.
But we need to let him finish the job, otherwise...
So the battle wasn't as long as we would have liked it to be. It's still funny if you think about how the Hulk manages to annoy Surtur for as long as he does, despite their difference in size. Also, Thor needed the demon to destroy his own planet, so Hulk had to back down. Otherwise, who would have known how this fight would have turned out? Yep, the Eternals strike once again, but this time it's the opening sequence where we get introduced to the fighters one after the other. The Deviants get thrashed once again, so I'm happy in that regard, but I also want to point out something else. We see the other Eternals taking out the Deviants in pairs. First there's Makari and Kingo joining forces to take down the first Deviant, then we've got Gilgamesh and Thena pulling off their weird couples fighting technique to finish off number 2. However, it's Icarus who brutally destroys a Deviant all by himself. Now that's some serious flexing if you ask me. Yeah, there are people who don't participate in this fight like Sprite, Cersei and Druid. They were never really meant for the battlefield, were they? At the end of the day, it was a solid showing from the Eternals, and this scene gave us a lot of hope for the rest of the movie. Unfortunately, that was as good as it got for the audience. Well, I know that Sandman is technically a dude with a mutation, but his battle form is as good as a monster, so this one's gonna still count for me. The final battle had a lot going on, but let's kick things off with the fight Peter Parker had to wager against only Sandman. After all, that skinny Venom only showed himself as a sudden surprise later, so the focus remains on these two. It It was a thrilling sequence, especially if you consider the fact that Mary Jane was being held hostage as well.
This thing got any more? Hang on! The what?
The stakes were high, and Spider-Man had to do his best to both beat his enemy and save his lover. Of course, that didn't go as planned, and we had to watch something truly brutal. I'll add the part where Venom holds him down and Sandman continues to whack him, because that's also part of the fight, and it was essentially the most touching moment from it too. Okay, it's one thing to watch two dragons going at each other, but then to finish off the job yourself is a whole other flex. The way Shang-Chi and the Great Protector face off against the Dweller in Darkness was a masterclass in monster battles. Sure, the Great Protector was good enough on its own, but if the Dweller in Darkness could get a power upgrade in the middle of the battle, then it only makes sense for Shang-Chi to use his rings as well. Bro really told his dragon, chill dude, I got this. The whole sequence was a visual masterpiece, especially with the final attack essentially ripping the enemy dragon to shreds. Final battles that are of this scale usually only happen in Avenger films, but the MCU took a risk with this one and it paid off. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to argue with me when I say that Doomsday is a freaking monster that needs to be ended as soon as possible. It took Superman, Wonder Woman, and, well, a bit of Batman to take down the beast. Although I do have to confess that it's mainly the Man of Steel who does the heavy lifting here. I won't blame Bruce Wayne though, just look at that thing. Bro looks like he could end a civilization simply by just screaming. Princess Diana does get a few licks in as well, so I won't discredit her. Plus, you know I love Gal Gadot, so there's no way I'm going to criticize my fave either. Having said that, the overall battle was a sight to behold, and even though the film didn't impress us as much as it should have, we still got a solid ending to it.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
You've come to die. Your world is now my world.
Look, if you casually swallow planets when you're feeling bored, then you're a completely different level of monstrous, which is why Doctor Strange vs. Dormammu was such a unique showdown. Yes, we do get to see Strange trying his best to keep up against the enemy's attacks, but from the looks of it, he never really stood a chance, which is why the Time Stone came in handy.
This is time. Endless, looped time.
Bargaining with a galactic monster isn't something any normal person can do, so for Strange to succeed while also tormenting such a beast was truly awe-inspiring. Sure, he took a lot of damage in the process and died more times than the Immortal from Invincible, but the important thing was to stay strong, and he did that very well. The OG Hellboy's grand finale had to find its way here because that Behemoth really was one of Guillermo del Toro's finest pieces of work. This was 20 years ago, and that monster looks more realistic than the humans from modern TV. Anyway, Hellboy knew he wasn't going to stand much of a chance against the Behemoth, especially after ripping out his horns, but when all else fails, there's always some good old grenades to fall back on. See, that's the thing about a character like Hellboy, he manages to find a way out even when all the odds are stacked against him. Even here, when he literally gets swallowed by the Behemoth, his only issue is the fact that he'll need to bear some of the damage from the grenades exploding inside the monster. That's the kind of confidence I'd love to possess, but obviously without having to get blasted by the bombs.
Gonna be sore in the morning.
That's my secret, Cat.
I'm always angry.
One Punch Man Season 3 is going to be airing soon this year, but never forget the Avenger who inspired Saitama from his very first episode.
Smash.
The Hulk smashing of the Leviathan is still to date his most brutal flex. You'd imagine a guy like him would go on to achieve greater things, but the MCU decided to make him a dork instead. Anyway, I'd rather just focus on how awesome this scene is, even if it only lasts for a few seconds. The moment of transformation and instant assault was perfectly captured, and seeing the Hulk destroy that Leviathan without even having to take any damage was simply incredible. This is as good as it gets for overpowered characters, and it was certainly a highlight for fans like me back in 2012.
I'm bringing the party to you.
I don't see how that's a party.
Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.